Thank you, Sam. I'm going to say advocacy is important because it gives us all a voice. Self-advocacy really works, but we will all need to work hard to always get our voice heard. Now over to you Sam, but it's to do with housekeeping.
Oh, I've done that. You're all right, Alison. You're all right. We can crack on now.
Thank you, Sam. So now I'm going to introduce you to Danielle and Jan, both research who have been working together on the history of self-advocacy since 2020. They are working with Brighton and Hove Speak Out and the Open University on this. Over to Jan and Danielle.
Hi everybody. Danielle's going to take most of this session, so I'm passing over to her.
Hello, I'm Danielle. I work at Brighton Hove Speak Out. Speak Out is an advocacy charity, and I work on our Learning Disability Voices Network, a self-advocacy project that supports self-advocacy groups and events and campaigns. I have been involved in self-advocacy for many years. I joined a young person's advocacy group and then started working at Speak Out a few years ago. I worked with Jan during COVID on a project to look at the history of self-advocacy and where it came from. We interviewed some of the self-advocates who did really important work in the past. Next slide, please. To start, we wanted to explain what self-advocacy is, because not everyone knows this. Here's a short clip from our history film, where people introduce what self-advocacy is and what it means to them.
Self-advocacy is speaking up for yourself, the things that are important to you.
Self-advocacy means you know about your rights and you can speak up for your rights. And you are able to make choices and decisions that affect your life.
Why is self-advocacy important? Which is a good question. It is important to learn self-advocacy skills because it helps you decide what you want in your life. It helps you learn about what choices you have.
When you have good self-advocacy skills, you can have more control and make decisions that are best for you.
In 2022, it was 50 years since the very first recorded advocacy meeting. To celebrate this history, Jan and I invited self-advocates around the country about their role in this history and made a film to record some of this history. We will show you a short clip of the film. It started with the first recorded speaking up group. The film goes on to talk about the beginning of people first groups in the 1980s and the start of the National Forum in the early 2000s, and some of the things self-advocates have done since then.
It's been 50 years since the first recorded speaking up group for people with learning disabilities got together. We want to celebrate this. A lot has happened since then. Now there are lots of self-advocacy groups all over the country. We want to look back at our journey over the last 50 years.
The first Speak Up meeting in 1972 took place in this house 50 years ago. At the time, the campaign for the mentally handicapped invited people who were living in long-stay hospitals to come to meet with professionals. The event was called Our Life. They called it participation, not speaking up or self-advocacy. Over the next few years, some hospitals and day centres set up groups.
You can watch the whole film on YouTube. The link will be put in the chat. People telling their own stories is really important part of self-advocacy. In 2021, Jan ran some workshops with Speak Out members and the history of people with learning disabilities and where their own stories fit into the history. We also talked about why it is important to know about this history. I'm going to show you another clip of Nathaniel talking about this. Next slide.
Hi, I'm Nathaniel. I was born in 1997. And why I think history is important, learning the history, is firstly, it can hopefully, through sharing that history, change people's minds and attitudes. Because we live in a society where there are some regions that have a lot of understanding about learning difficulties, and there are some places that have practically none. I only knew that autism existed by coming to Brighton. So I only learned about autism when I was 18. But prior to that, it wasn't even talked about literally at all. So through learning about the history and learning about the struggles, it can inform hopefully those parts of society that have yet to be informed and therefore change their attitudes. And I think that what needs to change to help this happen is that learning about this history needs to be mandatory for school teachers and also for parents as well, and anybody in a supportive capacity, to make sure that people are treated fairly and that everyone knows how to treat people fairly. So if they're not being treated fairly, they can be held to account.
It's important to record how big events affect our lives and also what everyday life is like. At Speak Out, we recorded people's stories about their experiences during the pandemic. We invited them and also ran workshops, art workshops. You can see their stories and art on Speak Out's website. These stories are the next part of self-advocacy history. I'll pass this last part to Jan.
Hello, everybody. So I worked with Danielle on the history project, which was really exciting. And then it was amazing doing that life history workshop. You saw an extract from Nathaniel talking about. What I think we should be doing next. We need the last slide, please, Sam. Is that possible? Is that we should be encouraging more people to tell their stories, particularly stories about self-advocacy, because it will be too late. If we don't get people to tell their stories now, they might not be able to tell them in the future. And the history of self-advocacy is too important just to be lost in the mists of time. So we would like, at Learning Disability England, to think that we could be pushing everybody to tell their stories about self-advocacy, a bit like Alison did earlier, her involvement since she was 20, so that we can build a really good picture of where self-advocacy has been and where it's going. And we think this should be the next stage in the story of self-advocacy, people telling their own stories about how self-advocacy has shaped their lives. Thank you.
Alison, I think you can go on now.
Can you hear me? Because somehow I don't know how I've gone black. My picture just disappeared. I don't know how. I don't know. I can hear me, but this is black. Can you all see me, or can you see a black background?
I don't know, but I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, Alison. Unfortunately, we have lost your lovely face. But
yeah, I can hear your voice, Alison, but I can't see your video camera. Is there something happen? Web camera not working?
No, it's on. It's on. It's just gone off.
It's from my end. It looks like you're frozen.
Well, Alison, as we can hear you, do you want to do the next bit? And then maybe when we go in groups, you can try and faff with your camera. Faff being a technical term, isn't it? You know, but what do you think?
Yeah. Sorry about this, guy. Or I can come back. I know it's going to be a bugbear. I can come back in. That might work. No, but it don't look very decent, does it, with me?
Ali, just move on. I think it's probably our film next. I can't see the agenda myself now.
Sorry, guy, you can't see my picture. Sorry, guys. Now I'm going to introduce you to Liz, Shawnee, Lorna from the Open University to share their work on what funding and ways of working out self-advocacy.
Alison, I think we're going to watch the film next, the film that Speak Up made.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to watch.
So we'll do the film, shall we? And then we'll come back and do that, because they might not be ready, because we might be freaking them out.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think that meant. I think I just looked on the agenda. It said about 5 to 11 for that bit.
Yeah. Let's not worry them. Okay. So shall I start the film? Shall we do that? Yeah. Is that right, Alison?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Alison, do you want to introduce the film? Have you got an introduction to it?
I'm here now. I just popped out. Sorry, guys, about that. Yeah, I can introduce the film. Thank you, Sam. This film is all about advocacy. A long time ago, when advocacy first started, it's all about different people doing advocacy. Am I right, Annie?
Yeah, it's all about it. It's all about it now, though, as well, isn't it, Alison?
Yeah, it's all about go like Jan said, advocacy. I think it's important, self-advocacy, because, like I said, I go to an organisation, we do advocacy all the time, and like I said, I've been doing it 20 odd years, and I love doing it and impacting advocacy, because I think for people who learn, but even with autism and learning, but they should get the voice heard, because I think they're more important than normal people. I think they should get the voice heard. I think it's really important. So now I'm going to watch the video.
Self-advocacy is about choice, control, and independence.
Self-advocacy is about getting your voice heard.
Self-advocacy helps people to speak up for themselves.
It's about living your life
In the past, it was very difficult for people with learning disabilities and autism to speak up for themselves. I had this experience years ago. A lot of people who wanted to speak out were afraid because without getting into trouble. Providers had lots of power. In the past 30 years, there's been more self-advocacy groups and more people with learning disabilities and autistic people becoming self-advocates, speaking up for themselves at various conferences. And I've seen people with learning disabilities and autistic people becoming more empowered and speaking up for themselves and being more assertive without being aggressive and building their self-esteem. There are some self-advocates who are family members who are doing projects on starting a family and representing parents with a learning disability and autism.
Self-advocacy helped me because my marriage broke down and my kids went into care and we went to court. And also with me going to my self-advocacy group, they really helped me because now they're supporting me with my children. And also 2 of my children come to speak up. And one of my oldest son, he's employed to speak up like myself. My relationship with my 2 children, it means a word to me because one of my oldest son, he lives with me. And like I said, we go on holiday, we go on day outing, we go for walks in park. My relationship with my 2 children, it won't be the same without advocacy.
Self-advocacy is about having the relationships you want.
Identifying as a gay man, I felt very cut off from mainstream society kind of thing. So set up my organisation, United Pride Friends, supporting those with autism and learning difficulties who identify as LGBTQ+, to overcome the boundaries of loneliness and isolation. I think for advocacy, because disabled people have been depressed for so long on being LGBTQ+, and I say over the last 10 or 15 years, it's more spoken out for now with people with disabilities, which is fantastic. Advocacy also helps to make the issues within the LGBTQ+ autism community aware of the social and communication difficulties, making the wider LGBTQ+ community aware of those difficulties, aware of the challenges faced. Advocacy has a big part in the future and in the present in tackling that, but also advocacy is also important to make the wider LGBTQ+ community aware of them challenges.
Self-advocacy is about changing people's lives.
My involvement with self-advocacy has been over 30 years. I am a qualified speaking up trainer and I've gone round the country doing speaking up training to other self-advocacy groups, and I've sat on a lot of partnership boards. I sat on my own borough partnership board for 10 years, and I also worked on the London-wide partnership board with valuing people for 10 years. I've seen a lot of people with learning difficulties, disabilities and autism working being able to speak up for themselves and being able to tell a lot of professional people what they want and not what the professional people want, because they are not living the life, we are living it. So we are telling them what we want.
I'm Andrew, I'm the Director of People First Self-Advocacy. But I started in the self-advocacy movement by joining my local People First group, which is called North Harts People First back in the 90s. It was kind of like a kind of connection, or a lot of kind of the life experiences that people with learning difficulties there had actually experienced. I was kind of thinking, I recognise that. I recognise that. I felt kind of engaged for the first time in my life, really. The first time that I'd ever felt that I'd actually had a voice. People with learning difficulties need to actually be more visible so that we can be the role models. The disability movement has a strong, important history, and it is important that the people that are kind of coming through our schools, our colleges and our universities actually can learn what actually what not just happened in the 70s and 80s, but what actually happened in the 90s, so that they can say, I can do that. Not hearing the system that's so frightened, it's saying, you can't. We live in a world that discriminates, and they actually think that that's actually okay. And the reason why self-advocacy is actually important is because from the grassroots upwards, if you think of it like a ladder, self-advocacy gives you power, control, and independence.
During COVID, I came across an organisation called Grace Air, which supports people with learning disabilities and autism. And then through Grace Air, I found out about Speak Out and started doing like some work on a history project called Sharing Our Voices, and then got involved in the self-advocacy movement through engaging more with Speak Out. In the last year, I've become a trustee and also spoken at a couple of national and international conferences. I was privileged to work alongside Danielle from Speak Out and Jan Walmsley on a video called 50 Years of Self-Advocacy. And what struck me when doing that video is how relatively recent self-advocacy has been in the UK. And when it first came to the UK, it seemed to be sort of like islands of advocacy. So we would have People First London and People First in different cities. But I think that the biggest change that has happened over the last 30 years is those islands have started to speak to one another, and we've gotten more of a national voice on self-advocacy. There's been a lot of opportunity to connect with people and to find out about the history of the community, where people had gone through similar challenges to what I faced. It built that sense of belonging, and that I'm not just an alien in an alien environment, that I'm actually part of a community, and I have people to talk to, and I have people to share life with. So through self-advocacy, I've done a lot of public speaking. I went to Iceland for an international conference, did some public speaking there, and then I've done some public speaking in Milton Keynes and London. The opportunity to speak up relates to all of us, every single individual, having a voice. And through sharing one story, one can connect with other people and also one can inspire like reflections and conversations and learn of other people's life stories, and then see if there are any overarching challenges or overarching celebrations, and then have those conversations and have campaigns or actions around these overarching challenges or celebration through sharing one story.
Self-advocacy is about making a difference.
It's about making a difference.
It's about making a difference.
It's about making a difference.
About making a difference.
It's about making a difference.
Alison,
I
you want
think
to
it's
go on to
me.
breakout rooms?
Yeah, that's it. I was going to say.
Is it your time or is it me? No.
I can introduce the breakout rooms if you want, unless you want to say anything about the film. What do you think when you watch it?
I think when I watch that, I know I were in it, but when I watch that film, it does. When I'm talking about my story about my children, it does make me have a little tear in my eyes, because, like I said, if it weren't for advocacy, I won't be doing what I'm doing now. So advocacy, like I said, that changed my life. But I won't be good to advocacy group, and like I said, I am passionate about advocacy because all my children have got learning ability like me, so I think it's very important with self-advocacy. I think it's important to get your voice out there.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Alison. So Alison mentioned breakout groups, and our lovely colleague Rachel is, as we speak, she has her thinking face on, if any of you can see her on the screen, because she's just about setting up the groups. And we've probably got 20 minutes if we want it in the groups, but we're going to put you in a breakout room. Hopefully, if you've told us, we've got you in with the right people. If not, you can always leave the breakout room and come and see us in the main bit here, and we can move you into another group. So don't feel worried about it. And really, we just wanted to give you a chance to think about some of what we've heard so far. So we heard from Dan and Danielle. What are we doing to help people share their stories so we know why self-advocacy matters, and people's history and their experiences? But we heard in that film, I heard a lot about understanding the difference it makes about connection and what it means for people, the difference it's made for people individually to feel like they know that they do belong and they're part of something bigger. But also Nathaniel talked about, like, coming together to solve problems or to celebrate. So we just want to give you a bit of time to have a chat with each other and sort of start to think through, what's that making you think? Do you know about things that are happening that you want we can help share or get other people connected to or involved? Do you know things that you want to start trying to make happen that we can maybe help you connect with other people on? Or just really whether it brought up any questions for you or any thoughts. When we come back, if you get one person from your group to put that in the chat, then we can make sure we've got it recorded and we don't lose it. But we should have a little bit of time to just pick up anything that people are sharing from those groups. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Yeah. Rachel is going to do that miraculous thing where we all like zoom off. And when we come back, we get to hear from Shawnee, Liz and Lorna as well about what the research project they did as well. But Rachel's going to make us zoom off. Is that right? Hello, welcome back, everybody. Can I just say, Joe Worley, I have clocked you there. I will find you.
Be lovely to catch up.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. Right, thank you all for coming back. It's lovely to see everybody coming back. In fact, there are quite a few of you on this screen that I'm recognizing, thinking, gosh, I've not seen you for ages. So you've reminded me you exist. So I'll undoubtedly start emailing you or something and hassling you. Are we all back, Rachel?
Yeah, I think so.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alex. So yeah, Alex has said that in their group they talked about making sure we involve different voices. What is a voice? Is it always words? Is it English language? How do we include everyone in self-advocacy? And that's a big challenge for us all to think about, isn't it? That's a great question. Oh, he's running a campaign about stop the disability tax. Is that about social care charging? T. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, it's about care contribution costs, and it's the group of ambassadors are running it, including
Hello.
yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's
If you've got a
basically
link, go on, sorry.
it's basically saying this tax is unfair and should be scrapped, and it's explaining to people who in the council, and when we have the new government, whatever that's going to be, and we'll find out in the early hours of the 5th, of July. Whoever is making sure that this is scrapped because it's completely unfair, and it's explaining to people what it actually is, because I wasn't aware of it until I became an ambassador. And it's making sure that people understand that this is what their rights are and how they can challenge this in a peaceful, non-violent way. It's explaining why it's wrong, and I think there is now a consensus at Westminster that they are going to look at this. So hopefully, when we have the new government, whatever that's going to be, they will scrap it. But it's a big if. I mean, I do hear that. Before I came here today, there was a report on Channel 4 News that I was watching from yesterday that's was explaining that people with learning difficulties, 1 in 6 people in this country have learning difficulties and neurodiverse. And they were saying what the political parties have been saying about people who have learning difficulties. Sorry.
Yes, I was going to say, no, I don't want to, I think what you're saying is really important. And I will put the link to that news piece in the chat. Thanks for mentioning it, because I found that earlier as well. So before we finish, I'll put the link to the news piece in the chat. Ros, did you want to share anything from your group?
Basically, we were just saying, how do we get people involved? And I just said by asking the members. And I'd like to introduce you to my other co-researcher, Kieran.
Oh, lovely. Hiya, Kieran. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for the wave. That's great. Thanks, Ros. And there's lots and lots in the chat that I can see about making connections. You know, our colleagues on the social care charging campaign, if you've got any links to anything that Learn to Speak England can share with everybody after this meeting, you know, everybody who signed up, we will do that, because there's something about us being stronger together, isn't there? How can we try and help more people speak up? Ros, did you want to come back in?
I need all the information as well, because Gosha from UEL has asked if we can do a blog
Oh,
for the newsletter.
brilliant. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? That would be
Yes.
great. Okay, fantastic. So is there anything else? There's lots in the chat about people. A lovely thing about employment is for everyone. And oh, is the award-winning Jodie here? The way I see this, I think it must be the award-winning Jodie, who's part of the Employment is for Everyone. There's a link there. We'll make sure you get that.
Hello, Mia.
Congratulations again. But yeah, so stuff about jobs, about people connecting, about how what actually we all need to do to make sure we're including people we don't currently include. That might be people from you know, ethnic minoritized groups. That might be people who don't use words to communicate. That might be people who just find meetings difficult, but how can they be helped to be part of self-advocacy? And they're all things that some of you will be cracking and we could share, aren't they? We could help try and share. So, Vicky.
Sam.
I just was going to turn around and say it, but in the workshops I even did say, but like how advocacy were important to me because it has helped a lot, and all I can really say is, but like if I didn't wait for Speak Up, I wouldn't be where I am today because like I've had a lot of support from Speak Up and now it helped me, and I am even so I've got photos of the wall that me and Jodie went for the Not Forget About Us with Reactors. I'm very pleased to have that award and to be able to at least even show it by photos. But the thing is it's helped me in all sorts of different ways, not just like me going to able to read and write and things, but also being able to speak up at meetings and tell them but why easy read information is very important. I'm not just seeing as a ticking box to those in those meetings, but it's very important. But easy read is easy thing to make, and it's not hard. It's not rocket science. It's very easy. And the thing is, I know it can be it can happen. It can be made because Speak Up does easy read information all the time, and we have had people turn around and said, but they refer to easy read information and what we do, the jargon words, what people use and come out with. And I'm not going to say too much, but that's one of the things I'm going to be mentioning when I go with Ari to Leeds meeting, what's happening tomorrow. So I'm a bit nervous because I've got to encourage people to say what they think about the things.
Thanks, Vicky. Annie.
Yes, so I was just going to say, in our group, we did mention a little bit about scams and online things that are going really badly wrong. We do on our friendly information website. I've popped it in the chat. We do have some films about keeping safe online and grooming. So it might be that people would want to just make a note of those if they're doing group sessions, because that came out quite strongly in our group.
Thank you. Thanks, Annie. And what we'll do at Learn to Fit England is when we send out the stuff after today, we'll put a list of all the links that have been shared, if that's all right. And we'll make sure you get them. Now, Jodie, I'm really worried about time now. So, but just so you know, go on.
I'll just make it quick. In our group for Employment is for Everyone, I actually did share a bit of good news. During that work, we've actually managed to get 30 people into paid work within Disability Standard Autism, and we've also got 7 supported internships. So that's all I wanted to share.
Nice, nice. Now, Ali, shall we go to you for you to introduce the next bit, because it links lovely to why it's worth investing, doesn't it, Alison?
You're on mute, Ali, and you're introducing Liz. It's on his second page.
Sorry, Stan. Sorry, I was trying to put my hand up. I can't. It's just a quick one. What I said in my group, I won't mind, I know they call, well, I won't mind if they can bring National Forum back, get people we learn about it, to get the voice heard. And it'd be nice if we can get a regional forum back, but I did say it in our meeting, because it's a shame it's gone. I think it's really shame. So
Yeah,
that's all.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
Now
absolutely.
yeah. Is it now? I'm going to hand you over to Liz, Shauna, and Lorna, all from the university, to share their work on the funding of ways of working of self-advocacy.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Alison, for that introduction. So I'm going to now attempt to share my screen. Let me know if this works okay. We did do a little practice earlier, but there may be technical issues. So let me just bring that down and put that onto the bigger screen. Now, can everybody see this slide?
Yeah.
Is that clear? Lovely. I now can't see anybody who's on the screen, so bear with me. But before we get started, can I just pass over to my colleagues, Sean and Lorna, who are going to present these slides with me, this next session, to introduce themselves. So, Sean, can we go to you first, please? Is Sean there? Can anybody see Sean, if Sean is there? Because I'm afraid I can't see that.
It looks like he might have just disappeared, Liz. I wonder if I go to Lorna while he rejoins.
That's great. Okay. Lorna, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, so hi, my name's Lorna and I'm a visiting researcher at the Open University, and I help to do the research for the Funding the Gap report.
Thanks, Lorna. And I'm Liz Tilley, so I'm also a researcher at the Open University, and I worked with Lorna and Jan and Sean on this piece of research in collaboration with Learning Disability England and a number of self-advocacy groups, some of whom are here today. Do we know if we've got Sean back yet by any chance?
We do.
Oh, Sean, hello. Hi. Sean, just to let you know, I can't see any of the participants.
Yeah, it's fine. What happened was
Either.
I couldn't unmute myself, so I had to leave.
Oh, don't worry, we can hear.
I literally couldn't unmute myself. So basically I left because like my phone crashed. So I'm Sean Takin. I am from my choice, so not the university. And I've been working with the Open University on this piece of work 2 years ago.
Lovely. Thanks, Sean. Great you're back with us and we can hear you really clearly. So we will move on. So we're talking to you today about a piece of research that we did a couple of years ago, which looked very carefully at how self-advocacy groups were funded and how we could potentially help self-advocacy to grow. And that built on a piece of research that we had done the year before with the same team, where we were looking at the role that self-advocacy had played during the pandemic in terms of supporting people's health and well-being. And we can post the links to both of these reports in the chat and send them around afterwards. But that first piece of research had shown us very clearly what a critical role self-advocacy had played in keeping people safe and healthy and connected during the COVID period. So on to the next slide. So in this piece of research, we wanted to find out a number of things, but we were particularly interested in learning more about why do some self-advocacy groups get funding but others don't. We wanted to know, where does the funding come from, especially if a local council isn't funding a self-advocacy group. What do self-advocacy groups think about funding? We also wanted to know, what do the people who have the money, that's commissioners, what do they think about self-advocacy? And lastly, we were looking at what are the pros and cons of different types of funding for self-advocacy organisations. So over to you, Lorna.
Thanks, Liz. So what did we do? We started with an advisory group to help us, and we talked to 8 self-advocacy groups in England, and we talked to 6 people who make decisions about funding, so commissioners. And we did all of the interviews were done remotely online. So what did we find out? So some of the main messages were that self-advocacy really matters to people with learning disabilities. Some commissioners understand self-advocacy and want to fund it, but other commissioners are less sure. Some groups have found really good ways to get more funding. And it's important that self-advocacy groups learn from each other. Over to Sean.
Thank you, Lorna. Message from self-advocacy groups. Some groups get funding from local authorities or health. Some groups don't want funding from local authorities, and some groups sell services to raise money. Message from self-advocacy groups too. Some funders make it difficult to get money, for example. They ask difficult questions. They want reports with lots of words, aka jargon, as Jodie and Vicky would say. But some funders make it much easier to get funding. For example, they ask easy questions. They let groups send an easy read report or video summary. Some groups told us about good experience with charitable funders. Message from self-advocacy group 3. What is difficult for groups? Funding is often short-term. This creates stress and lots of extra work. Groups worry about what will happen when a piece of funding comes to an end. What helps groups to be successful? Having several funding sources, having staff that are good at writing funding applications, and using words that funders understand.
Thanks, Sean. So we also got some key messages from the commissioners that we interviewed. Commissioners told us they really value self-advocacy because it can help them to get services right first time. In lots of local areas, consultation is a requirement. It's really important that local councils and commissioners are speaking with people and consulting with people. And self-advocacy is often a really important way in which this can be done. They also said that self-advocacy organisations were a great help with co-production work that needed to happen in their local areas, and that self-advocacy organisations were really important in terms of holding the authorities to account and making sure that they were doing a good job. But they also clarified for us, and I think we've spotted this in the chat, somebody's made this point already, funders do not have to fund self-advocacy. It's not a legal requirement, it's optional, whereas there is a legal requirement to fund other forms of advocacy. Over to you, Lorna.
So what groups can do to help them get more funding and to grow? Our research showed that self-advocacy groups should try to reach out to more people, for example, people who live further away and people with high support needs. They can sell services, things like inspections, training, producing easy read information. They can also build good relationships with local commissioners if you can, and to train more people so that the work is shared out. So what should happen next? We all need to spread the word and tell people about self-advocacy. We need to explain what self-advocacy is, why it matters, and how it can help.
Sorry, everyone, I think I've taken it off the main slide there. Bear with me. There we go.
Commissioners need to invest in self-advocacy because it helps people to have a good life. It helps people to use less services. It can help to prevent loneliness, I think people were saying today. It helps to build social connections. It can help to get services right first time. It helps to avoid the need for advocacy services further down the line. And it helps with co-production and consultation.
Over to you. Oh, I think this is still for you, Lorna, I
That's
think.
for me, yeah. Some tips for commissioners from our research. Commissioners can help self-advocacy to grow in different ways. For example, by providing money or funding, by providing advice and support, and by helping self-advocacy groups to network. And I think some people did say that they weren't aware of self-advocacy groups in their areas. So if you don't have a self-advocacy group in your area, then Learning Disability England can put you in touch with another group that might be able to help.
Sean?
Thank you. So, tip for self-advocacy groups. Know your worth, be confident, self-advocacy is important. Be professional and business-like, so you know what you're doing. Be reliable. Learn about funders like local authorities or clinical commissioning groups, now known as integrated care boards. What words do they use? What is important to them? How can you help them meet their objectives? Get better ways of bid writing. Find ways to tell people about the important work you do and look for other sources of funding, e.g. from charities. Ask for help if you need it.
We've also got some tips for funders. It's really important, we can't emphasise this enough, make your funding application as simple as possible. Don't ask for too much monitoring information that is going to overwhelm an organisation. Make your monitoring process as simple as possible. And where you can, offer funding that lasts 3 years or more. That is so important for groups that are often really struggling, feeling like they're operating hand to mouth year on year. And wherever possible, if funders can include core running costs, it's a huge help for self-advocacy groups. And we will stop there. So we'll put the link in the chat for this and the research we did during the COVID pandemic as well. I'll stop sharing my screen now, Sam and Alison, if you agree.
Right. Thank you for that. Sam, I think we've got a hand up. Is it Rough to call you? I don't know your name.
Ross?
Is it Ross?
Hello, Liz.
Hi, Ross. Nice to see you.
Can you email everything to me? Because Gosh has asked if we could do a blog type thing.
Of course.
And your report, perfect. It was an easy read format, which makes it a whole lot easier.
Oh, that's good. Thanks, Ross. We've also got easy read versions of that report, and we've got a longer version too with more detail for anybody that wants the more detail.
I'd sooner have the easy read.
Yeah, I'll put the links in. Everybody always prefers the easy read, let's face it. I'll put the links to both into the chat.
No, are you coming to the Hacker 20 thing next Friday?
Don't know. Don't know about that.
At the UEL.
I'll catch up with you about that afterwards, Ros. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Liz. Thank you for that presentation. Now we know what a short video on Gary all about future of self-advocacy.
Sam, we haven't got any noise.
No, we aren't.
Yeah, no sound yet.
Lots out of Hello, I hope you are getting lots out of the self-advocacy impact session. I'm on annual leave today, but I want to say a few things about self-advocacy. We have lots still to do to promote self-advocacy and make sure it carries on being an important part of our everyday work and lives. In our Self-Advocacy Good Lives chapter, we agreed that people with learning disabilities should be paid for the work they do and the knowledge they bring. We said we want real jobs with real wages. We also said be inclusive. Let's keep making sure that our self-advocacy groups are led by people with learning disabilities. I want to see more organisations everywhere being led by people with learning disabilities working alongside others and taking a leading role. I see from the feedback we have received at LDE that the most important issues to raise with the new government concern barriers, making reasonable adjustments, co-production and diversity. We need to make more reasonable adjustments like voice-activated computers or changing places, toilets. We need true co-production where self-advocates work alongside other self-advocacy groups and work collectively, like a coalition of disabled people, with all different types of disability represented, supporting each other. It's important to remove barriers, the ones that get in the way of progress. It's the system that stops us from making things happen in some ways. It prevents people from speaking up for ourselves, like not being able to be independent and say what we need. It would be good to relaunch the self-advocacy groups that have folded in the past and keep self-advocacy groups we do have running longer term with better funding. We need to start a new self-advocacy groups like regional, national, and international self-advocacy organizations. We need to make sure we are representing people with learning disabilities whose first language isn't English, and all minority ethnic communities, as well as those with high support needs. We want the new government, instead of working against us, to work with us. And remember, nothing about us without us. We need to help the government to be champions for people's rights by funding us, believing in us, pioneering our work. Together, we are stronger. Thank you very much.
Sam, I want to say that's fantastic with Gary. I would agree at the same. Because I want to say, I know this meeting, this conference finishing now, but I want to say, keep the work going, keep advocacy going, because it's important to us all. Yes, sorry. So I'm going to say thank you for all the speakers for coming, and thank you for him very much for all of you. So just keep the work, keep the work, keep it going. They're all work on Africa on South Africa because it's important. Keep it going. Sorry.
Alison, what brilliant chairing and what a brilliant way to end. Keep it going. Thank you all so much from me as well. It's been a joy to spend the last hour and a half with you. Thank you. And Alison, thank you for chairing us so brilliantly that we've finished a minute and a half early.
And I'm going to say thank you, Alison. Well done.
The first one I've done.
But you've done really well. You've done. That's all I'm saying.
Well done, Ali.
Yeah, you've done awesome, Alison.